going, guys? Winter Kills here. Welcome to an updated Marincess deck profile for February of 2020. Of course, post-Ignition Assault. We did get a little bit of support in the set, of course, in the form of Marincess Pascalis. But that isn't the only change that I've made to this deck since the last time I made an update. This is a bit more streamlined now, especially now that we have another Marincess monster to work with that is actually very beneficial to the strategy. So, hoping you guys are excited to see the changes that I've made, and I'm excited to show them to you guys. But before we go any further, a quick shout out to Imperium Duelist, the maker of these fine sleeves that I'm rocking here on the main deck and extra deck. These two-toned tournament-ready armor sleeves. They're absolutely fantastic for tournament play. If you guys are interested in picking them up, or this playmat that I'm using, or perhaps if you need a brand new sturdy and beautiful looking deck box, they have those available on their site as well. Dice tray down here in the bottom and plenty of space up here in the top. Fantastic deck box. Again, you can get it all for 10% off using my discount code in the description, WinterKills10 off. And if you're buying anything on TCG Player, whether it be any Marincess cards or whatever it may be, don't forget to use my affiliate link to TCG Player down in the description below as well. So we'll get right into the profile here, and to start we have 3 copies of Marincess Blue Tang. That has not changed since last time. 3 copies of Marincess Seahorse. Then following that we have 2 copies of Marincess Pascalis, and following that we have 2 copies of Marincess Mandarin. Moving on from there, we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 copies of the Droll and Lockbird, 2 copies of DD Crow. And that'll round up the main decked monsters. And into the spells, we have 3 copies of Signet Mining. Thankfully, this card is getting a reprint soon. Then we have 3 copies of Pot of Desires, 3 copies of Called by the Grave, 2 copies of Marincess Battle Ocean, and 1 copy of the Upstart Goblin. Following that, 1 for 1. Then we'll go into the traps where we have 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Then following that, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, and then 3 copies of Marincess Wave. And then the one last card that I had basically the extra slot for is 1 copy of the Trap Trick. That rounds out the 40 card main deck. Well, now we'll go ahead and take a look at the extra deck. So to start for the extra deck, we have 2 copies of the Marincess Wonder Heart, 1 copy of Borrelsword Dragon, 1 copy of Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, 1 Borlo Dragon, then 2 copies of Marincess Marbled Rock, 3 copies of Marincess Coral Anemone, 1 Crystal Heart, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 2 copies of the Blue Slug, and 1 copy of the Sea Angel to round out that extra deck. And yeah, with that being said, we'll go ahead and take a look at the deck breakdown and talk about card rolls. One thing I ask you guys now, please consider hitting that blue join button down next to the subscribe button if you want to help support the channel and get some amazing perks and rewards that go along with it. More information, if you click that join button, would be greatly appreciated. So here we have laid out in front of us the starter cards for the deck. Now, to reiterate, all starter cards are basically things that help get our engine going. That help us, facilitate our strategy in the easiest way possible. Help us see more cards in order to make our plays, and they often have the easiest activation requirements. We usually want anywhere between 11 and 14 of these cards to keep our deck both consistent and powerful. So to look at the first starter card I have selected here is none other than the Marincess Blue Tang. This card is incredible, has been since its release. If it's normal or special summon, you can send a Marincess monster from your deck to the graveyard, except itself. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for the link summon of a water monster, you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck. And if you do, you can add 1 excavated Marincess card from your hand and shuffle the rest into the deck. So this card does a whole hell of a lot. It dumps an amazing extender into the graveyard, whether it be the Seahorse or the Mandarin, depending on what you already have to work with. And it also gives you the opportunity to add an additional Marincess card to your hand. While it may be random, if it does give you the opportunity, which is nice, and it is a good normal summon for the deck. So then next up here we have 3 copies of Seahorse. This card is amazing as well. While it doesn't do much on its own as a normal summon, it does facilitate easy plays in our full combo, essentially, through itself and a link monster that we play in the extra deck. So basically, you can special summon this card from your hand to a zone a Marincess monster points to, and then you can only special summon Marincess Seahorse once per turn this way. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 water monster from your hand to a zone your Marincess link monster points to. So this card is fantastic in the sense you can normally link it off for Blue Slug. Blue Slug adds this back, and then you special this to the zone that the slug points to, and then you link off into Anemone. Anemone revives this, and then you make the one that gets the field spell, and then you make Marbled Rock, and then boom, Bob's your uncle, and you've got your full combo. So fantastic card right here. Then Pascalis. This is the newly released Marincess card from Ignition Assault. This card we've really needed for quite some time because it just gets us extra waters on board, extra Marincess monsters on board, essentially, to be able to work with to get farther into our combo. If it's normal or special summon, you can special summon one Marincess monster from your hand in defense position except itself. And then during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Then target one Marincess spell or trap in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So not only does it add to resource recursion, but it allows you to basically make your opening plays way more powerful and way more impactful because you can normal summon Pascalis and then bring out immediately after that a card like Blue Tang, and then use its effect to dump a card and then link off and use your other card that you summoned off your Pascalis to link again, and it just puts you very, very far ahead. Although this card is extremely vulnerable to hand traps, if this card gets hand trapped, you're pretty much dead in the water because this card, unlike this card, doesn't have an ability to special summon itself freely from the hand if you have a Marincess Link monster out. So you can't link this off and then, add it back. I mean, you can add it back, but once you add it back, you don't have a play with it at that point. So I think only playing 2 is fine since we have a lot of search and draw power in the deck. I didn't want to play any more than 2. And it is a very fragile normal summon because of that. If the Tang does get ashed, you can still link it off potentially and reveal an additional card and try to play even further. 3 Signet Mining, again, not much to be said about this card. It searches any Cyberse in the deck, which searches pretty much all of our Marincess monsters. And then 1 for 1. This card is fantastic. This card discarding any Marincess monster, getting Mandarin essentially gets you the full combo. This card is fantastic. 1 for 1, absolutely incredible here. Definitely have to play it hands down. So that is it for the starter cards. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at our superior extenders. So next up here we have our superior extenders, and one thing to note, we do have quite a few additional and superior extenders for this deck located within the extra deck. So if the numbers seem a little bit low here, that is probably part of the reason why. But taking a look at Marincess Seahorse, this card was labeled a starter card. It is a starter card, but again, it serves multiple roles within the deck. So not only can it be used as a normal summon to get into your combo, but if you have a better card or better way to start off your play, for example, by going Pascalis into the Blue Tang can dump the Seahorse to the graveyard, link off into Slug adds this back, and then you have the opportunity now that this card is back into your hand to be able to special summon it to make more link plays with. And its graveyard effect as well comes up. That might even be more of an additional extender type ability, but still an additional option, an additional way, to be able to advance upon our opening plays. And that, of course, is the job of the superior extenders, to enhance and build upon the plays that our starter cards are able to make. Now we have Marincess Mandarin. This card basically says if you control 2 or more Marincess monsters while this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can target 1 water link monster you control, special summon this card to your zone that monster points to, but banish it when it leaves the field. So this card does not do a lot on its own. In fact, you need 2 basically Marincess link monsters out on the board, before you can use this card's effect to summon it from hand or grave. So it is a bit harder to set up, can take a little while longer to get into play, isn't the best card to see in your opening hand, but is still a crucial extension piece for the deck. You could also even label this as an additional extender. Then we have Pot of Desires. This card right here, a potential starter card as well for the deck. Wanted to point that out, but easily a potential starter card. Allows you to see into more cards, period, which is, again, the general classification for starter cards. Very easy to activate as well. So, and we do play a lot of 3-ofs in the main deck, so banishing some cards here and there isn't going to make too big of a difference. And I am playing 3 because seeing Marincess monsters in this deck is so crucial. If you don't have those, you're dead. You don't have a turn, so you need as much draw power as possible. And if you need to play 3 of these, you need to play 3 of these because you just need to see your cards as soon as possible. So that's it for the superior extenders. Now we'll take a look at the additional extenders. So here we have our additional extenders for the deck. These cards basically, again, build upon the plays of our starters and superior extenders, but even have greater activation requirements. They're a bit harder to activate. They add to the power level of our deck, but not so much the consistency. We'll take a look first here at Battle Ocean since we already talked about Mandarin. But Battle Ocean here, basically, it boosts all Marincess monster control by 200 attack, and also each one gains 600 attack for each Marincess card equipped to it. Monsters you control in the extra monster zone that were link summoned using Marincess Crystal Heart as material are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. And when you link summon a Marincess monster in the extra monster zone, except during the damage step, you can equip up to 3 Marincess link monsters with different names from your graveyard to that link summon monster. So this is an example of an additional extender in my opinion. Not because of the first two effects obviously, but that last effect that allows you to equip multiple Marincess monsters to your Marincess monster in your extra monster zone. That effect is not a once per turn. You can use that effect of, equipping things as many times as you need to be able to, whatever, maybe chain block, and also give you the opportunity to re-equip cards like Marbled Rock or, Anemone to be able to link off or send off or whatever, to be able to add back additional cards into the graveyard. So this card is crucial, very, very crucial in that sense. But still a fantastic card, and of course allows us to make our Marincess monsters unaffected by card effects if they were linked with Crystal Heart. So a pretty big win condition right here within this field spell. And then Mandarin again takes a lot of setup. You need 2 Marincess monsters on board and a link monster that you can summon this card to, be able to point to it. So yeah, bit harder to activate, but again, needed for added power level for the deck. So now we're going to take a look at the responsive defense. Okay, so here we have our responsive defensive cards. Basically, these cards have to be activated within a specific window, and they cannot be activated whenever. I guess Droll is sort of a semi, one way or the other. It could be sort of both ways. But of course, Ash has to be activated in response to when a card is added, sent or special from the deck. So you have to activate it within a certain window. Droll and Lockbird, you have to obviously wait till they add something from their deck to the hand, whether by drawing or searching, but can be activated at any point after that. But again, you still need to wait for that specific window. Solemn Judgment, the main reason I'm playing this card, despite it being a responsive defense card, is because this deck can get blown out pretty bad by evenly matched. And this card stops that, so you definitely need to, I think, main this going forward. I was playing Strike before, but with the increase of evenly matched in everybody's main deck, I think it's much better to main the Solemn Judgment. But this card, again, you have to activate it when they summon a monster or activate a spell or trap effect, or just activate a spell or trap, period. You have to pay half, which again is, a small price to pay if you're negating an evenly matched, so this card is fantastic. The responsive defense cards, it's often better to play a bit less of them or not so much of them because again they can only be activated in certain windows. It's nicer to play a bit more cards that are a bit more flexible as in terms of defense and can be activated in more situations, and we'll get into that into a moment here. And those cards consist of cards like Call by the Grave. You obviously have your 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, your 3 copies of Marincess Wave, your 2 copies of DD Crow, and your 1 Trap Trick there. So quite a bit of chainable defense here. Chainable defense being a bit more favorable than the responsive defense because again these cards can be activated at any specific or any given point in the turn to help slow down our opponent's plays. Obviously Infinite Impermanence, we know what it does. It can negate an effect, but does not have to be activated when an effect is activated. Wave, it takes a bit more to be able to use Wave from hand, but if you're doing your full combo, you make this card live very easily. This card is not a once per turn either. It's basically an Infinite Impermanence, and also once activated from the hand, while you control a link 2 or higher Marincess monster, you basically make all monsters you control unaffected by card effects, which is insane. On top of being able to negate a monster effect. Trap Trick, same thing, can be activated whenever to tutor out either the Impermanence or the Wave, which are very important cards that you need to see, basically allowing us to play 4 copies of each of these cards. Then of course we have the 2 DD Crow, a very, very flexible hand trap, can be activated at any given point, whatever we need it to be activated, and isn't a once per turn either, so if we have 2 we can use both. And then Call by the Grave, this card is a bit different obviously than these other cards. While it is a responsive or chainable defense card, it is sort of a re-raise ceiling card as well. Our opponents are definitely going to be trying to lower our ceiling below that of theirs so that they can win the game. But Call by the Grave is a card that basically removes that floodgate our opponent is trying to place upon us, from trying to advance our plays forward. Very, very crucial to stop those in this deck because some of our effects are very fragile, and if they do get stopped, we're left quite literally dead in the water. For example, Pascalis, if a Sign Up Mining doesn't go through, or Desires that doesn't, that needs to go through doesn't go through, you might be losing the game. So Call by the Grave, very, very important in a deck like this, in my opinion. And then the last card in the main deck that we haven't talked about is the Upstart Goblin. This is the placeholder card. This is like the only card in the game that you could argue fits under this category. Shout out, of course, to Patrick Hoban. But yeah, this card lowers the deck count below 40, and that is its really only purpose within the deck. So now we're going to go into the extra deck real fast here and basically start looking at the Marincess extra deck monsters. First, we have the Sea Angel. This card basically lets you add the field spell. And that's really all it does. And getting to the field spell is very, very important, though. So I would consider this more of an engine requirement than anything. You have to play it if you want to get easy access to your field spell in engine. Then next up, of course, the Blue Slug. This card we talked about earlier on in the profile. This card is a fantastic extender, resource, recursion card. Adds back any Marincess monster in your graveyard upon being link summoned, but for the rest of the turn, it locks you into waters, which is fine because, 95% of our deck is waters. This card is very, very crucial, again, to be able to add back a blue tank for next turn, add back a slug to be able to summon to the zone it points to, etc., etc. Then we're playing 3 Anemone, arguably the most important link 2 in the entire extra deck. I don't know if 3 is needed exactly, but it just takes 2 water monsters and has the ability to revive 1 water monster in your graveyard with a 1500 or lesser attack, but then locks you into waters for the rest of the turn. But then if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target a Marincess card in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. So whether you're linking this card off or it's being sent from the equip zone to the graveyard, thanks to your field spell, you're getting to add back any Marincess card, which is amazing. So Anemone is absolutely incredible in here. Revives a card, can revive this card specifically, to be able to link into your link 3 or 4, and then since you link summon it using Marincess Crystal Heart, you can make it unaffected by card effects when combined with your field spell. This card I would consider an engine requirement. The only reason we're playing with this card is so we basically have a win con, so we can play the Protect the Castle with our link 3 or 4 and make it unaffected by card effects with the field spell. 2 Marbled Rock. This is basically the definition, the main key card in terms of playing Protect the Castle. Basically, it has the ability to target a water monster in your graveyard, or not a water monster, but a Marincess card in your graveyard, except itself, and add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Marbled Rock once per turn, and when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can discard basically 1 Marincess monster from your hand to the graveyard. For that battle, monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage. So you can just play the Protect game with this card and sort of stall out. And then you have 2 Wonderheart here. Got this French copy here that one of my friends hooked me up with at a YCS, so shout outs to you. But yeah, Wonderheart, this card I make, I don't really ever make this card going first. I usually make Marbled Rock for going first. This card is much better for going second because it has the ability to summon out things that are equipped to it, and those monsters can attack for more damage. So, for example, you can go into your Wonderheart, and then, attack, use its effect and damage step, summon this out, attack with this, and then attack with this, and then main phase 2, add back a card, and then during the end phase, this goes back to the spell and trap zone. So this card really great for just putting on more pressure and putting on more damage. And a lot of these cards here in the action, you can see are acting as extenders, specifically Blue Slug and the Anemone, doing a fantastic job at doing that. Even you go so far to say as the Wonderheart can do that as well. And then before we move on, of course, the other non-water links that we are playing in here, Nightmare Phoenix, obviously for back row removal, could set up some co-link draws with your other Marincess monsters. Avermax is incredible in this deck. We have a lot of link 2s that we can easily get into to make this card, especially turns 3 and later. So this card is great, and especially when you take into account Battle Ocean says that any monster in the extra monsters that was summoned using Crystal Heart is unaffected by card effects. So you could potentially make a Borreload, Sword, or Avermax unaffected by card effects if you play your cards right and are able to link summon them using that Crystal Heart while you have your field spell up. So you can make these 3 insanely powerful link 4s unaffected by card effects. Again, Boral Sword just for going for a game to seal out games faster than this deck is typically able to. Could be replaced with an Appaloosa if that's more your speed. And Borreload Dragon again, because this card is fantastic for outing cards that this deck really can't out on its own. So Borreload fits the bill for that. You could also play Shooting Code Talker as another option. Some people play Toads in the extra deck for playing the Swap Frog package. I'm personally not too big of a fan. So yeah, that'll round out the extra deck. Now going into the side deck, we do have a few options here, specifically just giving it a quick glance over. Siding out the 1-up Trap Trick or even both DD Crows here could definitely be something to do. Solemn Judgment is a card, honestly, I would probably always keep within the main deck because not Solemn Judgment, Evenly Matched is a card that's probably always going to come in against you. So Solemn Judgment, I feel like, is a must to stay within the main deck. You could get away with siding out 1 Potted Desires, even though I don't like siding out Draw Power. But that's probably about it. I mean, granted, you could technically maybe side out 1 Impermanence, or even 1 Wave if you need more room, or an Ash. So yeah, you do have a bit more room here. Probably 6. What do we have here? We have 6, 7 cards that you could possibly side out. Maybe even 8 if you needed more room. I would definitely be siding into more going second stuff. If you were worried about, playing against more going first strategies, but that's again why we're playing so many hand traps in the main. The 3 Ash, the 3 Impermanence, the DD Crows, the Drone Lockbirds, because if we do have to go second, we want to have a little bit of a heads up going into that turn, because this deck really does struggle sometimes with breaking boards, because it doesn't excel breaking boards. It excels at building boards and outgrinding the opponent and trying to win that way. Very much control and slower pace deck. That's why I like it. It's also a water deck as well. So that's going to do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, please consider joining the channel by clicking that blue join button. It would be greatly appreciated. A lot of cool behind the scenes things for me to offer for you guys. So check it out if you haven't. But yeah, as always, guys, we're going to sign out. We'll see you guys in the next one.